Hello, everybody. Greetings, friends and friends of the show. Welcome back. I'm Tony,
I'm Leona.
and this is the Tony and Leona Live show. And we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, for sharing our videos, for liking our page. We can't thank you enough. We got an exciting show today. It was a long weekend. Leona, you want to talk about what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about whether Christians ought to say the phrase, "Let's go, Brandon." Someone I follow on Instagram, her name is Ariel Gonzalez Bovat, and I'm just going to read a quick summary of who she is. Ariel is currently working towards a doctorate of education in community care and counseling, specializing in traumatology. She holds a Master of Arts degree in counseling, along with a second Master of Arts degree in theological studies. With her combined education and training, she is both biblical and clinical. Her work in progress is an online journal where she writes about how our bodies and minds respond to sin, stress, various forms of trauma or relationship strains, while seeking to remain faithful to Scripture. So she is dedicated to Christianity and comments a lot on politics and modern day issues and how to respond to them in a biblical way. I don't know what denomination of Christianity she is.
Well, let's go, Brandon. It started out as a joke. This show is not meant to be about a joke. We're actually, it brings up some pretty interesting and deep philosophical and political and spiritual questions in terms of what she's raising. So we're looking forward to that. Hope you guys had a great weekend too. We had a good one. Did a little kids talent show on Friday night, met some new people here in Florida, went to the beach on Sunday. But yeah, like everybody, Saturday night, I was flipping through. I have TikTok. You know, I know a lot of people aren't on TikTok, but I'm scrolling through, and my entire page is filled with the Travis Scott concert in Astro World in Houston, where tragically people lost their lives.
8 people.
It's still up in the air about exactly what happened. But, you know, as I'm flipping through the video footage from frightened concert goers, trying to get an idea what was going on, it felt so cringe. It felt so dark in a way. Again, I don't know exactly what happens. I know that there's an investigation underway, but just seeing the footage from the concert, what really caught my eye is, and there's always been ritualistic idolatry and imagery in music and concerts, but this one was especially pronounced, and probably due to the horrific mass casualty event that took place at Astroland, a lot of people noticed it. You know, people that aren't, you wouldn't tag as religious or overly religious or spiritual, but they were commenting on how demonic and ritualistic a lot of the imagery that Travis Scott used. They commented on his T-shirt. But, you know, the next day when
his T-shirt or the show's T-shirt?
The T-shirt he was wearing, and just some of the imagery they used, and the fire and the pyrotechnics they had going, and just a lot of really creepy stuff, especially given, like I said, what happened. So, you know, not every Sunday, I'll admit, am I excited to go to mass, but this Sunday we packed up the kids after they showered and got ready, and we literally ran to church at St. Agnes.
We do always pack them up, but
we do. But, you know, today it was just one of those days where you just felt like you needed to be close to the Lord, or to be around something that's good, or people who believe in the same things that you do in terms of the afterlife and faith and whatnot. But before we get into our topic at hand, one of our viewers was talking about how they want to have a more positive spin, or, you know, what we'd like to do is give a lot of people facts, information about COVID, about current events, about politics, about candidates and campaigns. And our Instagram post, actually, I should give you the credit for it, Leona. It's gotten how many likes now? The one you made today? It's close to 50 likes, and we just started this Instagram page, and Leona laid out. Can you just describe it a little bit?
Yeah. So I tried to lay out, as I said in, I think, our last show, I don't really think there is such thing as just facts or just data, because we all have different actual risks and perceived risks. We all have different biases. We all have different strengths. So we're going to look at and interpret data differently. But I tried to lay out what we talked about in our last episode, and I really tried to make it be the things that we currently know about COVID. So I didn't go into the potential risks of the vaccines because so much of that is unknown. And that could be many, many episodes in and of itself. Why is that so unknown? Why does the CDC not do a better job with vaccine adverse event reporting? They themselves did a study on it in 2010 and found that less than 1% of all vaccine injuries are reported, but they never changed anything about it or made it better. So it's really difficult to know what the risk of any vaccine is. It's especially difficult to know what the risk of any new vaccine is. And so I fully grant that I don't know. And so what I tried to lay out was what we know about COVID in children, what we currently know. And of course it could change, but what we currently know about the risk of COVID in children.
Sorry about that.
That's our own playback playing for us.
Sorry about that.
I can stop it. Get it.
Yeah, that'll work. There.
Sorry. So that's what it is. And I tried to, I cited every single slide because I see a lot of good information, both from people who are pro-vaccine, anti this vaccine, or just wanting to provide information where they will generally cite the source, but it's basically like all information is from the CDC or all information is from the World Health Organization. And it may be, but to me, that's very frustrating. I want to provide links so that people can go to the sources themselves. And so I think I did a decent job of that. I provided the link with every slide. And again, it's what we know so that parents can determine, is having their child receive a still new vaccine worth it for this particular virus based on what we know about this virus and based on what we know about other things that lead to childhood death.
Well, you got a bunch of likes from it, and it's a brand new account, and somebody shared it too. So we think that definitely helped to get. We got new subscribers from it, and so we're definitely appreciative for that. But check out Instagram, Tony and Leona. More good news out of Nashville, Tennessee. This was kind of an interesting story. Leona, you want to read what we got there? Let's see. So there was let's pull that up. There was a pastor. So they're going. This is in northern Tennessee, and northern Nashville, and there's a church service going on. And what happens? But somebody broke in to the church service with a gun.
Locked, but this
is from the Tennessean. You want to take it over?
Sure. A Nashville pastor is being hailed a hero by his congregation after he tackled a man waving a gun in the air and pointing it at people during a church service Sunday, police said. No shots were fired and no one was injured during the incident at Nashville Light Mission Pentecostal Church in, according to the Metro Nashville Police.
Wow. And another piece of good news is the governor's race that we covered out of New Jersey. Ciccarelli, is that how we say his name?
Yeah,
Ciccarelli. He is not conceding. And so
maybe good news, maybe. I don't
well, there's going to be a recount. But it was so close. But the other part of it that kind of stuck out is that in Middlesex, New Jersey, which is one of the counties there. Great, our computer's not working right now.
It's freezing.
But that was there was some issues that went on in this particular county, and they weren't able to count all the votes properly, and so there were some votes that were still up in the air, and so we're going to find out exactly what's happening with that. Hopefully soon, but Ciccarelli's not conceding.
I don't know the details, but I do know. Yeah, we will put the Instagram link. Yeah, we'll put that in. Thank you, John. I listened to one of his statements that I thought was great. He said, we don't need to give in to any grand theories or assume any grand theories, but we want every vote to be counted, which to me is reasonable. I don't know if every election has been done that way, where we would say in this whole area, we don't have all the votes in, but we're just going to assume that this area went red or went blue. And so based on that assumption, we're going to declare the winner now. To me, it makes sense to literally count every every vote.
Yeah.
If for every vote to count, we should be counting every vote.
Yeah. So we're going to be watching that pretty closely. And I think that we're getting what actually happened up here. This is from My Central Jersey.
Okay.
You want to read that there?
Sure.
This is by, let's see. This is Susan Lawyer, mycentraljersey.com. So go ahead.
Okay. Voters in some Middlesex County towns had difficulty casting ballots Tuesday morning. Several towns, including South Plainfield, Old Bridge, South River, Monroe, and Edison, experienced technological issues with electronic poll books, according to voters. In South Plainfield, 13 of 15 polling districts were inoperable for several hours Tuesday morning, according to a borough official.
Go the other way. There you go.
South River Mayor John Krenzel said the issues with the voting machines were widespread. He wrote in a post on his Facebook page, "It is not only in South River, but throughout the state. The county election boards are working on the problems. If you can, try to vote provisionally, although I have been told that voting that way is also problematic."
So, we've gone over this point before. These voting machines, there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding these voting machines. At a very minimum, they're not very good voting machines, because how many glitches, how many errors, how many technical difficulties have occurred just in the last few election cycles. We could document dozens and dozens and dozens of malfunctions and glitches in counties and election centers throughout the country. So,
are these Dominion or something else?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's mainly to the point that if you look at what Canada does, they have a much better way to vote. Like, they just do it on paper. Everything's on paper. That way, if you need to recount it, you're recounting the paper. Because a lot of the times what happens during these recounts is they're not actually recounting the ballots that were cast. They're recounting the digital versions of the ballots.
So, of course, you get the same number every time.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
And so
because
unless
you're
you're
just
actually
recounting
going
what was-
through the ballots, and some states don't have laws, believe it or not, that require the election
them.
centers to do that. So
Yeah, that is crazy. If it was Dominion, I was just going to say it used to be bipartisan that this was not an excellent way to vote. I mean, Senator Klobuchar from Minnesota, I remember her talking about this prior to 2020, and that wasn't, questioning democracy. That was a good thing to bring up.
Yep.
If it's not a good way to vote, then that's not good for any of us.
So some more good news is this is from the Independent. The Biden vaccine mandate for private businesses temporarily halted by federal judge. This is by David Taintor. Leona?
A federal judge has temporarily blocked President Joe Biden's vaccine mandate for private businesses that employ 100 or more people. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, based in New Orleans, Louisiana, issued the emergency injunction after more than 24 states filed suit against the requirement. Interestingly, did you see this, Tony? CNBC reported, so I have not listened to the White House say this, but CNBC reported that the Biden White House told businesses to proceed with the vax mandate despite court-ordered freeze.
So he went out of his way to tell businesses to do that.
Apparently, I don't know about him. It said the Biden White House, but
so they're basically not respecting the separation of powers in a way,
seems
the
that
co-equal
way.
branches of government. Once again, that's similar to what was done with the eviction moratorium.
yeah.
The Supreme Court made a decision, and the Biden administration just basically told people to move forward with it anyways, and they'll deal with it in court. And I know the Biden administration is pretty confident that they're going to ultimately prevail. This, I don't know what John thinks, but this is going to go to the Supreme Court. This will go to the Supreme Court. And it's probably going to happen sooner than later, is my guess. It wouldn't surprise me if the court takes it up in December. I don't know if that's possible, John, but I think we're going to see a decision on these vaccine mandates. We'd love to hear your predictions on it. Leona and I were talking about it earlier. My prediction is ultimately the Supreme Court is going to uphold the OSHA requirement for employers of 100 and more people to mandate this vaccine. We'll see. I think it's going to be a 5-4 decision, though. It'll be close.
Crazy.
So, any more
Crazy,
good
crazy.
news that we can talk about? I guess the mayor of New York City, the new one, what's his name? Eric Adams.
think so. Adam.
He's
Yeah.
actually entertaining the idea of reversing the vaccine passport in New York City. Lots of people are calling
That
on
would
him
be
to
pretty
do that.
cool. That'd
His
be impressive.
first day after winning the election, he
Wow.
was swarmed by a group of people
Oh,
demanding that
yeah, I
he
remember you
relinquish
saying
the
this.
vaccine mandate. And
Where was he when it
he
happened?
was just going
Is that
out to get a
restaurant or
latte
something?
or a morning coffee, lift up. He was probably excited about his victory, and he was literally
He should
swarmed.
have been
And they were
excited.
peaceful, they were respectful, but they were also demanding that Eric Adams reverse the vaccine mandate. And we'll see what happens with that.
So would that be regarding restaurants and movie theaters and things like that? Like, would that be regarding clients going to those places and needing a vax passport?
It would
Or is
just
California
it would
still
just
leading
lift the
country
burden.
and-
It would lift the burden off of the businesses to require vaccine passports upon entry. So
Okay.
we'll see what happens with that, though.
Wow.
He's also going to get paid his first few paychecks. He's going to get paid in Bitcoin, which is pretty historic, especially, to top off the good news as Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are reaching their all-time highs. I think Bitcoin currently is around $67,000 of Bitcoin. It's nearing 70,000. Ethereum's at all-time highs. I watch this stuff every day. But we don't offer any financial advice on the show. We don't offer trading advice.
We could do a whole show though where you just teach me something about
Maybe,
cryptocurrency.
but my main
because
point is
know
I think
nothing.
we're reaching the top. I think the market's reaching the top. I think the cryptos are reaching the top. And this may be a good time to taper down your investments if you do that. So, all right, well, let's get into our main topic at hand. Leona, do you want to introduce it again?
I just want to share what Ariel Gonzalez Bobat, who I had read her profile before, but she has pretty extensive degrees. She has 2 degrees already in different types of counseling, and she's working on another. And
well, maybe we should go through the history of Let's Go Brandon first.
Why don't you do that? Thank you.
We brought this up to one of my close people in my life. I won't say who it is, just so we don't identify these 2 people. They knew this was like 3 weeks ago.
It was right before we left for Florida, so just over 2 weeks.
And I said, "Do you guys know what Let's Go Brandon was?" And they had no clue. They had never heard Let's Go Brandon, even though Let's Go Brandon now has been a phrase for how long? It's been 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it had been around for a couple weeks at that point.
And it originated at a NASCAR event. A guy named Brandon won his first NASCAR race. And I'm not a big NASCAR guy, so I don't know exactly what. But so he's getting interviewed by an NBC reporter. And again, we're not condoning this language. We're just simply explaining the facts of how this all came about. And this had been a trend that was going on at various college
Sporting
football
events.
stadiums, sporting events, concerts, where crowds would erupt in the chant, F Joe Biden, except they would say the full expletive. And so Brandon's getting interviewed after his big victory. And clearly in the background, you can hear F Joe Biden.
Which is not the funny part.
F
The funny
Joe
part
Biden.
is
So
what
this
the
is
reporter
NBC, network television, NASCAR event, and you can clearly hear this. And
did.
the interviewer, it's a gal. She's like, "Wow, Brandon, can you hear it? Listen, they're cheering, they're chanting your name. Let's go, Brandon!" And from there, that went viral. And from there, Let's Go Brandon has taken on a life of its own. And this is what we, in conservative, libertarian, Republican circles, because it never really quite made it to the mainstream, even though, amazingly, on iTunes, a guy made a hip hop song called Let's Go Brandon. It's this guy right here. You want to read? This is from, oh no, sorry, that's one, but this one. This is from the Washington Examiner, Sydney Shea.
So another Let's Go Brandon song goes viral with nearly 1 million views.
So this is not the hip hop one.
Yeah. So YouTube user Forjado Blow created a hit after Loza Alexander's Let's Go Brandon theme song topped the charts in 2 Apple Music genres. The Let's Go Brandon chant originated from an October 2nd post-race interview that an NBC News sports reporter conducted with NASCAR star Brandon Brown. So that answers how long it's been around. We were close when we said 3 to 4 weeks. The crowd behind the reporter repeatedly yelled after Joe Biden, Tony already said, but she told the camera they were shouting, "Let's go, Brandon."
And then so this guy made a rap song about it.
Yeah.
He mixed in her voice and with the crowd chanting, and it's a pretty, the language in it is terrible, but it rose to #1 in the iTunes hip hop charts. And it even was #1 in the all-time pop charts for a little bit on iTunes. It surpassed
all I
Adele's
saw
song.
was above Adele.
So this is making huge splashes, right, in certain segments. And finally, one of the main points that got us into like the mainstream area, there was actually an article in the Pioneer Press out of St. Paul. And this was October 30th, 2021 by Colleen Long.
So a month after it started.
Yep.
When Republican Representative Bill Posey of Florida ended an October 22nd House floor speech with a fist pump and the phrase, "Let's go Brandon," it may have seemed cryptic and weird to many who were listening, but the phrase was already growing in right-wing circles, and now the seemingly upbeat sentiment, actually a stand-in for swearing at Joe Biden, is everywhere. South Carolina Republican Jeff Duncan wore a "Let's Go Brandon" face mask at the Capitol last week. Texas Senator Ted Cruz posed with a "Let's Go Brandon" sign at the World Series. Senator Mitch McConnell's press secretary retweeted a photo of the phrase on a construction sign in Virginia. So the line has become conservative code for something far more vulgar after Joe Biden. It's all the rage among Republicans wanting to prove their conservative credentials, a not-so-secret handshake that signals they're in sync with the party's base.
Okay, so let's just stop there for 1 second, because this is where maybe some of the gray area comes from, because I think "Let's Go Brandon" means something different to everybody.
Well, first of all, let me say this. It's interesting to say that it shows you're in line with the party's base. There are a lot of people who have a lot of problems with the current Biden administration who are definitely not fans of the Republican base. So that alone is I would argue, very incorrect assumption about anyone who says or agrees with the phrase, "Let's go Brandon."
I mean, what does it mean to you?
Well, so I have never used it, but I have certainly liked posts where it is used. The posts I have liked are not because it says "Let's go Brandon," but it's because they are bringing up an issue that I disagree with the Biden administration. So to me, and then I'll say #Let's go Brandon. And I've had no problem liking that post because I think it means we dislike what this administration is doing. If it actually said "F Joe Biden," I probably wouldn't like it. So I do like heart the post. So I do think that there's enough of a difference in "Let's go Brandon" being a statement on whether or not we agree with the certain things the administration is doing.
Well, did you read the post of what the gal said?
Yeah, no, I didn't read it yet today.
Maybe we should do that.
Here's what this woman, Ariel Gonzalez Bovat, said on Instagram. "It doesn't matter how much disdain you have for POTUS. 'Let's go Brandon' should never be a slogan you should be using. If the left took every opportunity to accuse the last president of racism, and that includes some Christians, that is no excuse to use masked vulgarity for this one." So that's kind of her main point. She goes on a little bit, but that first main point, I guess the question is someone truly trying to say an expletive about the president when they say "Let's go Brandon"? Because I certainly know a lot of people,
Jimbo,
hello, Jim, a lot of people who would not say F the president or anyone who are fully on board with "Let's go Brandon" because of their disagreement with what the administration is doing.
And we should make a distinction too here. She's not saying that people don't have the freedom of speech to say something like this.
No, she's saying Christians ought not. Yeah.
Morally.
Yeah.
That we shouldn't say that. And just going in to do a little bit of the history, and we don't need to go too far back, but just in my recent memory, President George Bush, 43, he was disrespected pretty heavily. That was a contentious Gore versus Bush election. Then we had September 11th. Everybody rallied behind the president, but soon thereafter, September 11th, people trashed George Bush left and right. And they called him every name in the book. And then moving on to President Obama, same thing. There were some conservatives who crossed the line with President Obama. They said nasty things about him, borderline racist things about him. and disrespected him in a lot of ways. It wasn't widespread, but it occurred. Moving on to Trump, I think that's basically the apex or the pinnacle in terms of disrespecting the president. A lot of people would say he deserved it, but from the first day that he was elected, reading down your streams, scrolling down, all I saw was "not my president."
What was the phrase everyone would use?
Not my president,
Duck Trump or whatever. I mean, I have a lot of personal friends who would share Duck Trump, and then a few personal friends who will share "Let's Go Brandon." So do we compare that?
But do you remember this right away from the election, just the "not my president" part?
Oh yeah,
and then
for
labeling
sure.
anybody who voted for him racist, white supremacist.
Oh, yeah, of course. I remember. Yeah.
Some of the most awful things in the book. So we endure that.
Or how about last summer of 2020 when people were outside of the arena? I don't remember what the event was, but Trump was there. A lot of other people were there. It was the night that Rand Paul was heckled because of Breonna Taylor's murder, despite the fact that he himself put forward the legislation to undo no-knock warrants because of Breonna Taylor's murder, and he was still heckled. But what also happened that night is people, which I didn't see anyone apologize for, was people were holding a doll of Trump with a noose. That's pretty direct. This is about the person.
So here's my point with that though, is there's no doubt presidents have been disrespected. It doesn't make it's okay.
Continue. Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's okay. When I saw "not my president" before he was even sworn in, it's like, wow, they're not even going to give this guy a chance. Not to mention, could you imagine if President Trump would have actually won and was sworn in from the 2020 election? Didn't you get the feeling that if Trump would have been sworn in, that half or a third of the country would have just quit? They wouldn't have recognized him as president. We were afraid of more additional riots that would have occurred. We would have been afraid of states breaking off. So my main point is the disrespect that we show the office of the president of the United States is actually tearing our country apart in a way. Because if you're going to automatically say Trump, not my president, and then the Democratic president sworn in, and you're saying this is a fake president, he's not my president, he didn't really win the election, what's going to happen the next time? How are we going to actually get out of this? So I think there's something to be said about accepting who the president is.
Yeah, and that's exactly people's point with anyone wanting to make sure that the 2020 election was legitimate, that you're undermining democracy. You're saying he's not the president. What's so interesting is when there's verifiable data that's being ignored, it's not undermining the democracy to say we need to look into this. Doesn't mean that he didn't win. Maybe he won by more, but we need to look into this.
There's a good Jimbo made a comment. You want to read them?
Yeah. Serious disrespect in popular culture and in the mainstream media for presidents since George H.W. Bush. Presidents can be criticized, but much of what we see today is trashy defamation. Yeah, I agree.
And it's happened even before George H.W. Bush. I think if you go back in the even in the first elections of this country, you'll see some pretty nasty campaigns that took place and throwing people under the bus. But I think generally speaking, at least during our time, until recent times, until really the last two presidents, in general, Americans have recognized the president as our president, not your president, not my president, but our president. And we've given them that basic respect. Yeah. And that part's at risk.
Yep. And that's where I think it's a good, I think it's worth considering is saying, let's go, Brandon.
But here's where I'm going to push back a little bit, though, because in the Pioneer Press article and the insinuation from the gal, what's her name?
Ariel.
Is that this is what "Let's Go Brandon" means. And this is where regulating speech, and I know she's not doing that. No, she's doing it from a moral point of view. But even so, what "Let's Go Brandon" means to me is not F Joe Biden. Yeah. What it means to me is it represents this cover up of deficiency or of the fake news. Clearly they were hearing one thing and it was substituted with "Let's Go Brandon." Yeah. And that's the frustration. And I think that's why it picks up, is because of all the censorship that's occurred, because of certain groups of people being told that they can't protest, that their rights don't matter, that you can't say the emperor's not wearing any clothes, that you can't raise your voice. When you don't feel like you can do that, that's why Let's Go Brandon emerged, because it is code.
Yeah.
But the code is not necessarily what the Pioneer Press is saying.
Well, that's why I brought up when they say it's a way, what's the word or the phrase the Pioneer Press used, that it's a
code.
To prove here, it's a not so secret handshake that signals they're in sync with the party's base. And that's where that alone, I think, is very wrong. Like, again, I know there are many people who would say, let's go Brandon, who are not in sync with the party's base. I don't even really know what that means right now. So that alone is, that part at least is a mischaracterization. And it's tricky. I mean, that's where being human is hard, because everything we say and do can be misinterpreted by someone else. But I do think another good point as Christians that Ariel Bobat makes is this. She said, why should we refrain from using the Brandon phrase as some sort of battle cry with others? Can it be a simple phrase we use as a form of protest? You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? It's really, and then she says this, so that's from the Bible, that's from Matthew, but then she says, it's really difficult emotionally to say F Joe Biden in code while praying for the man and his administration. And I guess I totally agree with her on saying F Joe Biden. And that's why I'm pretty shocked at how many people did say things like duck Trump or whatever they said, now, I mean, it's fine. I'm not saying they're like evil people, but I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And I guess I do think Let's Go Brandon is not necessarily saying F Joe Biden in code, but maybe that's just me. Like,
well, let's not forget that Nancy Pelosi famously said that she prayed for Trump every day. So
yes, that's true.
It can occur. You can do both at the same time.
And then she goes on, I'll finish it quick. It's really hard to have disdain and public disgust for someone while at the same time be making every effort to love someone who we consider an enemy, according to the Spirit's leading. And I do think, I think her overall point is really good. We are absolutely meant to genuinely pray and genuinely love others. Loving someone is willing the good of them. I absolutely will the good of Biden, and we all should. Absolutely. And we should pray for him and the administration and pray for his soul, pray for him to be a good leader, all of these things. So that, I mean, I completely agree with her point there. I think the only reason why I pretty strongly disagree with the one part, the premise that saying Let's Go Brandon is saying F Joe Biden in code, is simply that I know people who say Let's Go Brandon who would never, ever say F Joe Biden. And even in their discussions of the administration, they're not like, he's so insane, I'm so angry at him. Like, it's very much like, this policy made no sense, it's leading to this, it's harming these people. Like, when you can have a logical conversation that's about policy, and you're saying Let's Go Brandon is about an effect of the policy that is harming people, to me, that's very different than a disposition of your heart where you have true disdain for another human being. We should not have disdain for another human being. I agree with Ariel on that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm giving too much.
That it reminds me of a couple things too. Is remember Mitch McConnell famously said he hoped Obama would fail.
Yeah.
And
which is
and that kind of brings up that same sentiment. Like, do you want your president to fail?
No.
Like, he got a lot of pushback from that from people in his own party too. But do you want Joe Biden to succeed? And what does that mean though, too? Because what succeed in what? Succeed in, if the president succeeds, supposedly the country succeeds as well.
I mean, one of the very first things, the pipeline, I was hoping that it wouldn't lead to disastrous effects for normal people in our country, while allowing carbon emissions in other countries to just rise, meaning that we're not doing anything for climate change anyways, but we are harming people. So I was hoping that would somehow succeed in that it wouldn't end up harming people and not doing anything for climate change. And
here's another example too. So Let's Go Brandon is probably better than saying F Joe Biden, right? If your kid
I mean,
said,
I
let's go
strongly think
Brandon
so.
versus this. So this would be the question that I'd have for
That's
for
well said. Hi,
Ariel.
Dallas.
Hey, Dallas.
glad
I don't
you're
want him
here.
to succeed in the agenda either.
Yeah, agreed.
But if somebody's saying, let's go Brandon, if your kid says, let's go Brandon, your 8-year-old, or says F Joe Biden, right? There's a moral difference there. So for Ariel to be completely consistent in her argument, she would actually have to agree to the idea that you can't say gosh darn it or shoot or fudge.
The thing is,
or any sort of substitute for even worse language, because we teach our kids. You don't say oh my God. You say oh my gosh.
Don't take the
oh
name
my
of
gosh
the
is okay.
The Lord's name in
But
vain.
aren't they really just saying oh my God when they say oh my gosh?
Well,
or if you say gosh darn it all, even if it's in anger or isn't that the same thing? Because it's really just substituting a few letters, but it means
when I say shoot,
let's go Brandon is different that way.
Yeah, I think let's go Brandon is a little different because it's not just I guess I think it's not necessarily meaning the exact same thing. Yeah, I agree. To be truly holy, you have to go the extra step and not only love friends, but also enemies. But I think you can be very against a certain administration's policies and still love AOC and Bernie Sanders and Biden and Pelosi, like still love them in terms of willing the good and not wishing evil upon them and not saying awful things about them. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the question here. Show respect for the president. Is it not showing respect to say let's go Brandon? And if let's go Brandon just means I strongly disagree with these policies and how they're affecting people, I think that's still very much within the realm of showing respect for the presidency. But if it is saying F this person or F anyone, I think that is very much outside of the realm of
and if we want to go back to a better day in America, like I always reference the 1990s, prior to September 11th, 2001, really. Growing up in high school, we didn't know, Jim can attest, we didn't know the difference between conservative or progressive, or it wasn't part of our dialect. We didn't discuss it in high school, even in college. And I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, very progressive political. We never discussed it.
Yeah.
We never discussed politics.
School, you would do like a mock election and you would actually have the names. They do it now, but they don't have politicians' names. Didn't you actually have politicians' names?
Of course, yeah, and they still do that in certain schools. But
maybe.
But my main point, though, is that we've reached a point, and it started with September 11th. It got worse under Obama. It got even worse under Trump. And now where we are now, where literally there's people and families that can't talk to each other because of political differences. There's fights on Facebook. Husband and wives are splitting up because of political issues.
Yeah.
And if we're ever going to have any hope as a country, I think that's why this message by Ariel kind of resonates with me, is like, we're going to have to learn to live with each other's votes. Now, it's incredibly important to have voter integrity so that our votes actually count. One person, one vote, one legal vote, one vote. And if we get to that point, then it's absolutely crucial to accept the results of the election, of free and fair elections. And that means it's our president. And that means having some sort of a basic respect for the leadership in the country.
I love, you've said a couple times to me, like all of these arguments really should be solved at the ballot box. We all vote. We know that every single person's vote counts, every single one. And whoever is the winner, we all respect as the winner. And that's why, so it is, I mean, it's so important. If you want to have a democracy, you need to have fair and legal elections where every single citizen can vote and where every single citizen's vote is counted and they know that it counts. So it's obviously important in terms of the democracy in general, but I also just like how you've brought up, it's also important in terms of settling some of these like heated disagreements. It's okay to have those, but in the end, we go with the person who we collectively elect.
So maybe the idea is then, to answer our question and kind of close up this segment, should Christians say, let's go Brandon, Leona? Yes or no?
Probably not. Probably better not to.
And I'm going to say, yeah, they should.
Okay.
But I'm going to say what we were saying, though.
Yeah.
Things got to be respectful. If you mean let's go Brandon, like F the president, no, you shouldn't say it. If you mean it as symbolic to the fake news environment that we have and
Yeah.
and this emperor wears no clothes type thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay to say it. I think it really depends on what is in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're really just saying it to kind of mock the fake news environment and you still respect the president,
Mock the fake news environment, or to address how his administration has affected things and saying like, this is bad, but you're not at all saying against like him as a human created by God with full dignity.
Mm-hmm.
Fake news. Yeah. This is an interesting, we could talk about this another time, but Jimbo, I had no idea how polarized the church was until college. I kind of did. I don't know what it is about the way my parents raised me or where I grew up, but I was sort of aware of that, for better or for worse. But I wonder if it's gotten worse or if it's always been that way. You were not. I mean, I was very aware of Catholics interpreting how to vote very differently and having very, very heated opinions on both sides of that. Like I was very aware of Catholics who were staunch Democrats, very aware of Catholics who were staunch Republicans, and really, really passionate views on why they were those things and wouldn't change. So I was at least aware of that.
So we forgot to mention at the beginning of the show our schedule for this week. So we're going to be on Monday. We're not going to be on tomorrow. We're going to be on Wednesday. Wednesday is going to be an important show. It's going to be kind of our bread and butter. What we like to report on and talk about the facts is we is COVID. And can you talk about a little bit about what we're going to discuss on Wednesday?
I actually think you should. You know a little bit more. I'll research it tonight and tomorrow and Wednesday before the show, but.
So there's it's the British Medical Journal,
BMJ,
the BMJ. So this is a well-respected publication, medical publication for doctors.
We can get the data on
from the UK,
why it's well respected.
And they have a published article, and it's COVID-19 researcher blows the whistle on data integrity issues in Pfizer's vaccine trial. So this researcher was quality control researcher, part of the Pfizer vaccine trials, and they
and this is the adult trials, right?
Yeah.
So this is like the very first.
So this whistleblower, researcher turned whistleblower, came out and just covered a number of issues and with the process, with the methodology, with the experimental methods, with data integrity, with the Pfizer vaccine trials. So we're going to go through that report in detail on Wednesday, and that's what we're going to primarily focus on with that. So
I love this. Uncle Pat had him in your life and loved the church.
Let's go Vikings.
What is the Let's Go Vikings in relation to? I'm so out of it. Are they playing tonight or tomorrow?
They're 3-5 now.
Because they won tonight? Okay.
No, they lost again. They lost again.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But yeah, Wednesday, 9:30. And then we're also going to be coming to the end. So this set that we have here, we're actually in the process of building our studio, and we're going to start having guests on the show pretty soon. Yeah. The first group of guests that we're going to reach out to are the Minnesota gubernatorial candidates. We hope to have Scott Jensen, Paul Gazelka, Michelle Benson, each on separately and doing a lengthy long style interview with them just so people can get to know them. And then we have another candidate here in Naples, Florida, who we're going to cover, who's running in against an incumbent. But we're going to have a number of different guests coming on, and every time we're going to try to improve our show. You know, we're going to script it more. We're going to have higher production value, but we're going to do it regularly. So we definitely want to thank the people who are starting with us on the ground level. This is only our 4th live stream. We've already learned a lot. We're using kind of crude technology at this point.
We should share a picture of our setup.
But we're going to continue to improve, and we're asking for your continued help and support in doing that.
Subscribing is super helpful.
Yeah, subscribing to the channel, liking the videos.
If you're willing to share,
if you're willing to help,
to share with someone,
and tune in, you know, even if you're doing something in the background, tuning in so that we get our numbers up. I know that we've had good viewership in our first ones. I mean, we just started this, and so we're really happy with the support that we're getting and the growth that we're getting. I think our subscriber list has already grown 30-fold in a matter of a week. That's like going from 1 to 30.
Yep.
still
we
pretty
can still
exciting.
claim it, right? For
We're
now.
happy. And, and then the Instagram page, we have 3 posts on there now, but one of them got 50 likes. And, but just people sharing the information is key. So, but yeah, we want to focus on facts. We want to focus on bringing in voters who are independent, suburban Christian moms, Catholic dads, parents,
Inner city
couples
voters,
who maybe
everyone.
haven't been political there for most of their life, but are starting to wake up and wondering kind of what's going on. They're seeing all these mandates and kind of craziness and just different things they see in the news. And we want to reach out to these people because the first arc of our show is this first year is going to go to the general election in November of 2022. So we're going to follow the arc of the election. We're going to find swing states. We're going to have gubernatorial candidates on, U.S. House representatives in swing districts, hopefully get some U.S. senators, but we also want to just get everyday, ordinary people and gear the show towards kind of the political animals. And Lord knows I am for sure kind of a political junkie. I eat, breathe, and sleep it, but that's not the audience that we want. We want the people. We're trying to find people who want to make a difference. And from what we can see, the best difference that we can make is to raise awareness, to grow consciousness, and then it's through election integrity and through the vote. That's the only way we're going to turn this ship around.
And I'm really, really passionate about looking at both sides of an issue and not being so partisan, that it's like, yeah, of course that was an awful vote. Maybe I do think it was an awful vote or an awful policy, but to not just be like, screw that, that's insane, but to kind of look into, well, like this is the reason, or this is the hope with that policy. And we at least can probably agree on the hope. And the ultimate goal, but we need to discuss how to get there and trying to dig a little bit deeper to answer some of those questions without just writing off some people as like, what are the goals that all of us want? And sure, someone who votes very differently than me has different ways of getting there, but I really do believe that most people actually want good for.
Well, and going back to the
things.
Let's Go Brandon theme of the discussion, the dangerous part of our politics and the way our media works is that there's always the other, right? So it's these.
Yeah, when I was saying
the
like
disrespect is coming from kind of this general glob of people rather than individuals. When we talk about people disrespecting Trump when he was in office and how that made us feel, and the hypocrisy that you see on CNN or some of the fake news channels. And we have a tendency as people to attribute that to an entire side. Yeah, and for sure. That's a dangerous way of looking at it, because
it happens the other way.
There's a lot of people in the middle who don't want to engage in that type of stuff. And it just because somebody votes Democrat, it doesn't mean that they hate you.
Right. And that's certainly
could be the
problem
case
with
but,
Let's Go Brandon.
Yeah.
With that phrase. Yeah. And to clarify, when I said like insane voters in me, I'm not saying other people are insane voters. I'm saying when we like other each other or become too partisan, then that's how you end up thinking like, how could anyone support this? And then there's me who like votes for sane policies, and instead of creating that dichotomy in my brain and in how I present information, trying to come from a place of a little bit more understanding and a little bit more faith that we all want good for our country and for our world and for each other. And
yeah, because at the end of the day, we're all in this boat together, especially, when we have kids and nephews and nieces and little ones. This is the world that they're inheriting. And when you close your eyes and you think about what's life going to look like here politically or economically, or from a liberty point of view, what's it going to look like 20 years from now?
G.K. Chesterton,
when Max is 28 years old, what kind of world is he going to be living in?
Yeah.
Is he going to be able to go to a concert? Is he going to be able to walk down the street with his kids in downtown Minneapolis or Chicago or Miami? Is it going to be safe enough? What's the drug problem? How is that going to get better? Are there going to be people, is the fentanyl crisis going to get worse?
Will there be a home for any of them to even try to own someday?
Like, are they going to be able to own anything?
Mhm.
Like, what kind of job opportunities will they have? Like, will they be able to go to college?
Mhm.
Will they be able to afford college? Like, how many mandated vaccines would they need just to be able to get enrolled?
Mhm.
These are the types of questions that we're grappling with now that I think are incredibly important to reset the ideals and principles of the Constitution and individual liberties before it's too late. And
GK Chesterton said, "We are all in the same boat in a stormy sea." I think that's what he said. And for that, we owe each other a great deal of loyalty, maybe is what he said. I don't remember it. I haven't looked it up in a long time, but it had a big impact on me and I still like it. We're all in the same boat in a stormy sea. And for that, we owe each other a great deal of something like loyalty.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful paraphrase.
When he said it, it was beautiful.
But yeah, this Wednesday, 9:30, it'll be a good show. We're going to do a lot of research. We already are. It's going to be on the study that was released, the whistleblower on the Pfizer vaccine trials.
Published in the British Medical
Extremely important to know about right now because we're in the midst of this mandate crisis that's gripping the country right now.
Yeah.
And now's the time to figure it out.
Yep.
But thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you for your support
Please
of the
do
channel.
subscribe if you haven't.
We
if
love
you're
you.
willing
We
to-
love our audience. And we are excited to grow with you. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.